Hi everybody, I'm sorry I've been a little bit late with the next episode of the Mythic Tarot and the cards. You know it if you follow me with the series. I'm going to do one episode for 5 cards, otherwise it will be too long, but I'm going to read the story behind the cards because it's quite complicated and you might not understand the way I'm saying it, but at least you get the story. And if you want to find out more about it, then have a look on Google. The Suit of Swords, that is what we are going to talk about today, and I'm going to do the Ace of Swords, the 2 of Swords, the 3 of Swords, and the 4 of Swords, and the 5 of Swords. Also talking about, I'm reading the general story behind the whole suit, and I'm just going to also discuss what each card represents. Okay. The story of Oratus and the curse of the house of Arterius is a dark tale full of conflict and bloodshed, and one of the most powerful of Greek myths. At its core lies a conflict of 2 great opposing principles, mother right and father right. And it is this collision of principles which makes the tale appropriate for the illustration, the quarrelsome, turbulent, yet ultimately immensely creative Suit of Swords. For this suit deals with the human mind in its most potent form, the capacity to create good or evil fate according to the strength of one's beliefs, convictions and principles. The entire tale of the curse of the house of Arterius is long and convoluted, and we will deal here primarily with its final chapter. But in short, it begins with the crime of King Tantalos and Lydia, who grew so arrogant that in his madness he mocked the gods. He cut his little son into pieces and severed these, cooked at a banquet to which he had invited the Olympians in order to test their wisdom. For this act of savagery and arrogance, the gods cursed Tantalos line. Thus the curse of the house of Arterius commences with the misuse of the mind, man's double-edged gift, which raises him above the beasts, yet also gives him the power to destroy wantonly. We begin our exploration of the Suit of Swords with Oratus, the young prince of Argos, who found that the family curse passed on to him in the form of a terrible choice. Oratus was the son of King Agamemnon and Queen Clytemnestra of Argos, and the curse had passed down through Agamemnon's father and grandfather. When the Great War began between the Greek and the Trojans, the beginning of which we glimpsed in the story of Paris in the Major Arcana card of the Lovers. Agamemnon was a Greek warlord who was elected to lead the armies by the sea to Troy. He managed through his arrogance to lead the armies through his arrogance, warlord, He managed through his arrogance to offend the goddess Hecate, Artemis, in inverted commas, but boasting in one of her offended the goddess Hecate, Artemis, by boasting in one of her sacred groves, and Hecate in anger sent a terrible storm which pinned the Greek fleet in the harbour. So Hecate is Artemis, and he pinned them down in the harbour. Okay. She was a goddess. The goddess oracle informed Agamemnon that he would have to make a dreadful reparation or retribution to the goddess before she would lift the storm. He was required to sacrifice his own daughter Iphigenia on the gods' altar at Aulis, or else to forego the potential glory of leading the Greek armies to Troy. For Agamemnon, glory was far more important than a daughter. After all, he had another called Electra, and daughters were less valuable than sons, and so he deceived his wife Clytemnestra by announcing that Iphigenia would be married to Aulis. The girl was duly sent from her home at Argos to the war camp at Aulis and was there slaughtered. By the time Clytemnestra discovered the truth, Agamemnon had already sailed to Troy. The Greek armies were successful and Troy was sacked, and Agamemnon returned home a hero. But during his absence, Clytemnestra plotted revenge for the death of her daughter. For their daughter, she took a lover, Augustus, and together these two planned Agamemnon's murder. When he arrived home, surrounded by cheering troops, she greeted him sweetly and led him into his bath, and there she and her lover cut him to pieces. To prevent any interference with this act, she sent her son Orteris away to the city of Phocis, so that he would know nothing of the murder and would not try to save or avenge his father. But the god Apollo appeared before Orestes and Phocis and told him that he must avenge the murder of his father, for this was the sacred obligation of a son. Orestes protested, horrified, because this meant he must become a matricide, a martyr. In other words, he had to become a martyr. Apollo then, I think that's what it means, a matricide. Apollo then threatened him with madness and frightful punishments if Orestes refused the god's command. The young prince at last accepted the will of the god with a heavy heart, for to kill his own mother, although right according to Apollo's patriarchal law, meant he would be hounded into madness and death by the Furies, the terrifying goddesses of vengeance, to whom the murder of mother was the worst of all human crimes, according to their matriarchal law. Thus Orestes accepted his fate and journeyed back to Argos in secret. When he arrived at the palace, only his dog recognized him, but eventually so did his surviving sister Electra, who also burned with a desire to avenge her father's death. Orestes, with the help of his sister, killed his first Agathis and then his mother. Thus he fulfilled Apollo's will, but immediately the Furies appeared with their snake locks and leather wings and horrible faces, and drove him mad. With terrible nightmares and visions, they hounded him all over Greece until eventually, in despair and exhaustion, he sought sanctuary at the shrine of the goddess Athena. Athena took pity on the young prince, who was, through no moral fault of his own, caught between two such powerful and destructive forces. She set up a jury of 12 human judges who might assess the case. The jury will split in its vote, six-sided, with Apollo, and asserted that a father was the most important life, and six-sided with Furies, and asserted that it was a mother. Athena herself casted the deciding vote in favor of Oratus, just as he was at the point of expiring. The goddess then made peace with the Furies by offering them their own shrine and honorable worship, and thus Oratus was freed, and the ancient curse of the house of Atreus was lifted at long last. Wow, what a story. Well, that is very quickly, so I'm sorry if I sound monotonous, but we go into so you know how the story begins and the story ends. I won't go into each because the story gets explained more in detail with card by card. But I'm going to now explain. I could do this in one video, I think. The Ace of Swords means victory because the swords stand for communication. They stand for wisdom, gaining wisdom, new studies. Also, justice, like the story tells. That's where the jury came in. So municipalities, the courts, and institutions like school, gaining knowledge. Also gaining speech, be able to speak publicly. It also means lawyers, high status, well-learned, well-read people generally. That is what it means. Then you've got the Two of Swords. This is the father and the mother fighting against them, not seeing eye to eye. And in the tarot, it means sometimes in wire rates deck, you see the person with the two swords across their chest shut off. They can't communicate, so they've shut off in this deck towards each other. And that is how the fight started. There was no communication. Then again, the Three of Swords means loss, means broken heart. It means, it doesn't have to mean that you have a broken heart because a marriage or a relationship is over. It could be, but that is the basic meaning. Also, there could be a third party because there's three people in here, a third party in a relationship or in a partnership. It could be that somebody's interfering in your relationship. But I also see it as loss of job, loss of money, loss of a pet, not only a partner, but a loss of some kind, which breaks your heart. Then we have the Four of Swords. The Four of Swords means taking time out, meditate, contemplate if you don't meditate, and evaluate, so you know that when you come out of your retreat, as it also means retreat, that you know you've got the answer from within and you know what step to take next. The Five of Swords, well, that means this is the god, nobody is the winner. It is also not being in balance. The Five is halfway there, so you're halfway. If you see this, you can say that you're halfway there, and you might be at war or disagreements that will not bring a happy ending. Then we see the Six of Swords, and the Six of Swords, you can see rough waters and smoother waters. He's sailing off into the distance to quieter waters. It could also, you see the home here, moving home or going on holiday, crossing water, traveling for work, also crossing water, but you're going into a better future. Here somebody is spooking around, big shadow with 7 swords, and in Rider-Waite's deck it is only 5 swords, but he's taken all, so nothing is left behind. It means deceit, cheating, stealing, or something has been stolen in the dark of the nights and you didn't know about it. Then you have the Eight of Swords, and these are the stooges or the weird monsters, but it can also be the goddesses of music, art and literature, and it all depends which deck you use. I call them the stooges. Okay, those can also mean the voices in your head because you went mad. The voices in your head, it could also mean the voices in your head as intuition. Listen to your subconscious. Wow. Feeling imprisoned and feeling tied down or cornered. That is also what Eight of Swords mean. The Nine of Swords, you are desperate, destitute, that you can't get any further. There is an ending here. Sleepless nights. Okay, I'm not doing the numerology, but sleepless nights, an ending. An ending because he's going mad and he was saved, but he would have died if he wasn't saved by Athena. The Ten of Swords, forgiveness. Somebody's here, it's not the swords aren't in his back. It looks like a defensive gate, but the meaning means stabbed in the back. That's the basic meaning. An ending, boom, and a new beginning. I hope you have enjoyed this explanation or my definition of the suit of swords, and I'm going on to the Queen, Page, Knight, Queen and King in the next video, but you know the story behind it. Take care, please like and share, and stay tuned for other videos. Thank you. Hi there, this is the suit of the characters, the Page, the Knight, the Queen and the King of Swords. I hope you enjoyed the minor arcana. I'm not going to tell you the depictions of what's happening in the cards. I'm going quickly into what each card means. They are very extensively detailed, about 2 pages, so it's a bit too long. I just want to cover a few paragraphs, so if you want to or would like to know more about the cards, then I suggest have a look on YouTube, or yes, YouTube or Google. The Page of Swords. Here is the card of the Page of Swords. We meet the nascent, unformed and primitive beginnings of the element of air. The first stirrings of independence, mental activity, formulation. This is embodied in the mythic figure of Zeus, the youthful ruler of the west wind. The empire of the 4 winds sprang from the union of Eos, goddess of the dawn, and Astros, a personification of the starry night sky. Notus was the south wind and Eurus the east wind, but the 2 most powerful children of the union of dawn and night sky were Boreas, and the north wind and Sulphurus. Together these 2 brothers were worshipped and savaged and baleful forces of nature, immature and unbridled, who took pleasure in brewing storms and tossing the waves of the sea. Elemental in disposition, Sulphurus lived with his brother Boreas in the mountain caves of Thrace, and mounted clouds to blow out of his mouth the threatening west wind. The youth was possessed of a spiteful and malicious nature. From his union with hideous harpy Podrich, a creature with a woman's head and breasts and wings and claws of a bird. when born the 2 wild horses which drew the chariot of hero Achilles during the Trojan War. So that is just how the page is described. And these are the 2 brothers, and then we go into the knights. Now the page means children. It could be news coming your way with the modern technology. It could be coming through cyber, email, text message, airmail or telephone call. And so that's where the element of air came into the swords. Also the knight here, here is the card of the knight. Swords, we meet the flexible, volatile and changeable dimensions of the element of air, which is constantly in motion. This turbulent activity in the realm of the mind is embodied in the mythic figures of quarrelsome Dioscuri, the warrior twins, who were called Castor and Polydeus. Their mother was Leia, queen of Sparta, who was pursued by amorous Zeus, king of the gods. When she refused the gods' advances, he transformed himself into a swan and raped her. She was already pregnant by her husband, King Tyros, and bore 2 eggs by her swan lover. Out of one were hatched 2 mortal children, Castor and his sister Clynetra, who we have already met in the story of the orators in the number cards of the suit of swords. Out of the other egg came 2 divine children of Zeus, Polydeuces and Helen, whom we met in the minor arcana card of the Queen of Cups. Thus Dioscuri were twin brothers, but Castor was mortal and Polydeuces was divine. So that is a bit of the story why you've got 2 knights on 1 horse in this deck, because usually you only see 1 knight. The Page of Swords mainly represents Aquarius, but we never forget there is a possibility of Gemini or Libra. In the knights we have all 3 air signs, Gemini, Libra and Aquarius, that it represents. Also news through cyber, airmail, text message or email or telephone call. Then we go to the Queen, and the Queen, she is quite significant. Okay, she is one of my favorites actually, but she's not too badly depicted this time. Usually she's like the king, very grey and cold, because they have their emotions under control. So it's regarded that she's the Ice Queen. She's also called the Ice Queen. The card of the Queen of Swords portrays a cool, stern-faced yet beautiful woman with pale hair, severely dressed. In a simple pale blue dress, she wears a golden crown and is seated on a silver throne. In one hand she holds the silver sword, in the other a jug from which water spills onto the ground. Behind her, a vista of snow-capped mountains can be seen beneath the still, cool blue sea, and that's why she's called the Ice Queen as well. Here in the card of the Queen of Swords we meet the stable, reflective, contained dimension of the element of air. This is embodied in the mythic figure of Atalanta, the huntress, who was disappointed in love through having 2 high ideals. Atalanta, whose name means unswaying, was the child of King Isis, who had wished passionately for a male heir. Atalanta's birth disappointed him so cruelly that he exposed her on a hillside near Claydon. But the child was rescued and suckled by a bear, which near moon goddess Artemis Hecate sent to her aid Atalanta grew to a womanhood among a clan of hunters who found and reared her, but she remained a virgin and always carried arms. And she was not yet reconciled to her father, who refused to acknowledge her. Atalanta achieved many famous deeds of arms, including famous Clydonian boar hunt, which she fought alongside the men and achieved the first strike at the boar. But although the young hero Meleager, the son of the war god Ares, and the best javelin thrower in Greece, fell in love with her, Atalanta refused to succumb to an ordinary woman's fate. Eventually her father, proud of her prowess, recognized her at last and promised to find her a noble husband. Now, the rest I'll leave as a mystery for you to find out. Now we're going on to the king, and that's the last one in the deck. So she's a hunter, and that's why she protects. She actually became such a person. If you read the card of justice, then it's the sort of same story as Athena, that she was born and she wasn't recognized, so she fought like a boy, and so that is how she got recognition from her father. So the mythical stories do change from culture and nationality, and yeah. Now we're going on to the king. The card of the King of Swords portrays a handsome man with chiseled features and fair hair and beard, robed in grey and crowned with gold. He is seated on a silver throne, whose arms are engraved with the emblem of perfect harmony, the equilateral triangle. In one hand he holds the silver sword, in the other a pair of scales. Behind him stretches the landscape of a mountain peak beneath the cloudy grey sky, also snow. So here you can see the justice, ruling in justice and clarity. Okay, now they both stand for wisdom, again, justice, the justice system, legalities, institutions, municipalities, communication, and also wisdom, communication, and justice. Also keeping their emotions under control, very stern, direct. The point of the sword also means direct. They can communicate very sharply and direct, and they can cut everything away, but sometimes careless, because the sword cuts on both sides as well. Here in the card of the King of Swords we meet the dynamic initiating, organizing dimension of the element of air. This is embodied in the mythic figure of the hero Odysseus, or Odysseus perhaps, I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, who was called the Wily One, and whom we have met briefly in the Minor Arcana card of the Queen of Wands as the husband of Penelope. Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, had been secretly begotten by Sisyphus on the daughter of the thief Autolycus. Thus he inherited some of the guile and cleverness of his father. With the outbreak of the Trojan War, Odysseus joined the other Greek princes in the assault on Troy, and he proved over and over to be shrewd advisor and sound strategist. It was Odysseus who first conceived the idea of the Trojan horse, that huge hollow wooden beast which was sent into the city as a gift to the goddess Athena. and which was secretly filled with Greek troops. But then Troy was finally sacked. Odysseus always showed mercy to the captives and promised fair treatment to those who surrendered peacefully. And that is the story, a bit of the story of the King of Swords. I hope you have enjoyed this reading, my darling viewers, all my cyber angels. Take care, stay safe, and please like and share. And I'll be back with the next suit. Thank you. Bye-bye.